Center, Houston's designated rape crisis center, known as HAWK. I want to start by thanking the Children's Assessment Center for allowing us to have this press conference here today. The Children's Assessment Center is serving as our temporary administrative home as we reimagine and build out a flagship campus that will triple our capacity to house survivors fleeing violence, and will also include a rape crisis response center to support survivors in the wake of an immediate aftermath of an assault. So why are we here today? We heard the news from HPD that thousands of sexual assault cases had not been investigated for years and years. We hope that you share in our frustration and outrage. I want you to know that I have been in personal communication with Chief Finner, and he has assured me, and I will quote him here, that we will do whatever is necessary to regain the trust and respect of your organization, and most importantly, the survivors. I want you to know I believe him, and that we very much look forward to working with HPD to support the survivors whose cases have been ignored, and to ensure that the systems are in place to make sure this does not happen again. As Houston's designated rape crisis center, we provide 24-hour hotline access on our rape crisis hotline. We provide crisis counseling, hospital accompaniment and advocacy, ongoing counseling, peer support, and individual psychotherapy. We are at the front lines of supporting survivors and listening to them every day, and we offer a wide array of services to help them heal in the wake of harm. As the presiding officer of Harris County's sexual assault response team, we are also looking at the systems that are in place in our community to ensure there is a wide, coordinated care system for survivors here in Houston. It is very significant that a rape crisis center is the presiding officer of the SART. What this means is that the experiences of survivors will be centered in all of the solutions that we come up with together across the very many systems that have contact with survivors in the wake of a sexual assault. I am here with these wonderful women today because we have a profound opportunity. As advocates and thought leaders, we at the Houston Area Women's Center felt that it was imperative to leverage this moment while we have your attention on sexual assault to do something very important. We want to take this opportunity to deepen your understanding and awareness of sexual assault and how to prevent it from happening. We intend to leverage the attention currently on HPD and direct it towards real solutions, because this is so much bigger than HPD. And we're going to do that today by listening to survivors. We are going to center their experience. These issues can be very hard to talk about. And if you're not uncomfortable at some point this morning, then you are not listening. I would ask that you listen today with understanding. You listen to learn. You open your hearts. And you be willing to look at yourself and our culture and our community. My job right now is to prepare the way for the survivors we have gathered today to speak. And I want you to know 5 things right up front. The first is that the stories that you're going to hear today are not isolated incidents. The magnitude of this problem is immense. 1/3 of all adult Texans experience some form of sexual assault over the course of their lifetime, according to a 2015 Texas statewide prevalence study. Boys, girls, men, women, LGBTQ, every demographic is vulnerable. Every community is suffering from these horrific crimes. Magnitude. Number 2, this is underreported. The incidents reported to law enforcement represent just a small fraction of the assaults taking place. Less than 10% of sexual assaults are ever reported. Most survivors do not come forward. They do not tell what has happened to them, maybe ever to anyone. I want you to ask yourselves why. Why are survivors not willing to come forward? Perhaps it's because this is the only crime where survivors are asked to wonder whether they're going to be believed, where their credibility is in question instead of the perpetrator. Perhaps it's because the shame and stigma and blame and the experience of being minimized and being swept aside is so prevalent. Perhaps people feel afraid about what will happen to them if they report. They worry what people will think. They are tired of not knowing they will be believed. I share this because this means there are people in your life who you know and love who have experienced sexual assault and have never told you. I want to drive home today the honor that we are experiencing by having survivors who are willing to tell their story, to be vulnerable, and to speak into a culture that has told them they're the problem, not the person who committed the crime against them. 3, most sexual assaults are perpetrated by someone the survivor knows. 8 out of 10 by some estimates. The systems that we have put in place to support survivors often assume that it's a stranger who's committed that assault. This is a problem. What in fact is happening most of the time is that somebody knows has gained access to them, has manipulated their trust, leveraged their vulnerabilities, coerced and forced them to comply with threats, intimidation, physical force. The perpetrators are stepdads, granddads, uncles, family members, friends, acquaintances, neighbors, teachers, pastors, coaches, bosses, even intimate partners. That's who's committing sexual assault. 75% of our domestic violence clients who come to us for support report that they have been assaulted by their partner. The relational ecosystem that somebody is embedded in is totally disrupted when they come forward, most of the time, because as I said, most of the time you know your perpetrator. The very system that people turn to rely on support will be forever changed once a survivor comes forward. That is so hard to do. And it's why we cannot only discuss reported sexual assaults if we want to get at the root of this problem. The 4th thing I want you to know is that sexual assault is traumatic and healing is possible. Hawk has been working with survivors for 46 years, and make no mistake, these experiences are deeply traumatizing. When your space, your body, your personhood has been violated, it impacts your sense of self, your ability to trust, your capacity for intimacy, your faith in God and humanity. There may or may not be obvious physical injury, but the damage has been done. To compound that trauma of assault, all too often survivors are met with disbelief, which further compounds their experience of alienation and self-recrimination. Even as I belabor the trauma, I want you to know healing is possible. We see it every day. For some, that healing journey involves telling their story. And this morning, I want to applaud you for being available to support the healing of the voices you will hear today. The last thing I want you to know, number 5, solutions are available. I am most proud of Hawk for our ability over the decades to listen to survivors day after day and to discern through their stories the cultural, economic, political, and emotional barriers that are preventing them from full restoration and that have contributed to them being assaulted in the first place. Our practice is to identify those areas, validate them with those we serve, and then get busy advocating for the changes that we know now with clear conviction and evidence are needed. I want you to listen when Hawk and our survivors tell you what people need to heal and thrive. I want you to pay attention to what we say about how to prevent sexual assault. Please know, sound bites are not solutions. A soundbite like we are going to get rapists off the streets is not a solution to sexual assault. I want you to hear me when I say that this is a public health crisis and it demands a public health intervention. When I tell you that we are seeing an alarming rise in rape-related pregnancies now that survivors of rape and incest can no longer access the full scope of reproductive health care, I want you to hear me. And when I tell you that because most survivors know their perpetrator, we are now seeing a situation where survivors are raising children with the very people who abused and assaulted them. And I want you to listen when I say that domestic violence survivors are victims also of sexual assault. And when a person is pregnant by their abuser, their risk of getting killed rises. It rises. The lethality rises when you are pregnant by your abuser. So when you're seeing alarming rates of incidents of domestic violence homicide, please do not think that is disconnected from sexual assault. This is what is at stake when we do not listen to survivors and allow their stories to drive the changes in our culture and community that we know are needed. And with that, I would like to cede the floor for survivors to speak. I'm surrounded by these brave and strong women who are here to tell their stories. I ask you to listen, to believe them. Please. Sylvia? Your voice matters. Thank you for coming forward.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Sylvia. I am a survivor of domestic violence, and I am also a legal advocate for victims of domestic violence. When I heard this news, it's like, oh my God. I'm going to tell you all something. As a survivor of domestic violence and sexual assault, because I call them brothers and sisters, I know exactly how they feel. This news is terrible, horrible. This news tells me and them, we don't matter. Nobody cares. And I'm here because I want for you to prove me wrong. This is a problem that belongs to the community. I know you all don't like it, but we don't like it either. And I have a couple of questions here that I kind of asked myself. And I'll apologize ahead, which I know I don't have to, but I am in case, because this does take me to many places. It takes me to places, me as one being a survivor, me advocating for survivors, and understanding. But as a survivor, my voice matters. And the reason that it matters is because I want to tell the other survivors out there, I believe you. If no one else does, I believe you, because I've been there. And I want to tell you, survivors, you matter, and you're not alone. No matter that we feel like we're alone, but you're not alone. There's agencies like this behind me. When I was raped, Sonia from Houston Women Area Center went to the emergency room, brought me a little basket. I don't know why I never forget the basket. They had little cookies and stuff. It just made me feel so good that there was somebody there to support me and believe me, because our culture, especially my Hispanic naive culture, teaches us that, you know, nothing happened. Be quiet. And I'm not going to be quiet. I'm here to talk about my experience only for educational purposes. Because our legal system, seriously, come on. Stop getting a paycheck. You need to get it together. It's a puzzle. And if one little piece is missing out of that puzzle, being the reporting agencies where we report, ADAs, judges. My case was from Judge Helms. He just threw it out. Do your homework. You'll find out who that judge was. I want to support survivors. I want people to support survivors. by encouraging them to get help. Help is very important. It is very important. It's what got me here to where I can be brave enough to come and stand in front of all of you. And I know for a fact that I will be getting, through the media, the haters that are going to talk about me. Why did I go up there and say that? Shame on me. Who would want to rape you? Believe me, I've been there. It's all right. I'll pray for them. And you know, you can show your support by encouraging them to get help. Understanding, educating yourself, how can you help them? Because we all say the wrong words. When someone is raped, we say the wrong words. Why didn't you leave before? Why did you get raped? Why didn't you report it before? Did you tell anyone? Of course we did. Of course we did. But guess what? Nobody listened. That's why we're here. And my bullet points that I have for you all is that I'm very disappointed. I am so disappointed. This just makes my this makes my job so much harder. Because when a survivor tells me, because I go to court with them, Sylvia, what happened? Why am I not going to go to court? What do I tell them? What do I say? You know, it makes it difficult. And so now I have a whole other job of, okay, let's see what we can do. So once again, the resources are there. Please encourage anyone that you know to come out and get help. Because I honestly never knew that my mess and everything my parents taught me and grandparents and generations before me, it was going to be a blessing. Because I made sure that for me and my daughters and my grandchildren and every generation to come, they can come tell me no matter what. And believe me, I will get out there and help them. So that's my message. And really it's to the survivors. You're not alone. Keep fighting. We're in this together.
Good morning. I'm going to give my remarks in both English and Spanish. I will do English first. Again, good morning. My name is Leticia Manzano, and I'm a survivor of sexual assault. The first time I was abused, I was 5 years old, and I was abused by an adult male family member. The next 2 times I was abused, I was 12 and 13, and I was abused by a different adult male family member. And unfortunately, that was not the last time I experienced sexual violence. I was also sexually assaulted by a young man I was dating in college. I'm here to talk about my experience to tell you that my story is not uncommon. For the past 25 years, I have been a counselor at the Houston Area Women's Center. And in my career, I have counseled many, many survivors who experienced sexual violence more than one time in their lives, and almost always by a family member or someone they knew. Like other survivors, I immediately thought about what it would mean to my mother or other family members to hear that I was speaking publicly about being abused by men in my family. Like other women, I immediately thought of the needs and feelings of others first, before I thought about my needs and my feelings. Like other survivors, thinking about speaking out this morning brought back many painful and undesirable memories. And like other survivors, I began feeling anxious. I was anxious because I knew that the questions that would come would be, why didn't you tell anyone what happened? Why didn't you report it to the police? But I knew I had to speak today for others who cannot. I'm here to tell you that those are the wrong questions. The questions I prefer to be asked is, what are some reasons a child doesn't tell their parents? Or what are some reasons that survivors don't report to the police? I prefer those questions to come from a place of curiosity to better understand and support all survivors. Instead of asking questions, tell survivors that not telling their parents and not reporting to the police is common and understandable. I have to speak for others who cannot. In my capacity as the Senior Manager of Sexual Assault Services at HAWK, I have had many opportunities to speak up for those who can't in important spaces over the years, and that is an honor and a privilege. I am currently a member of the Harris County Sexual Assault Response Team, and I am also a member of the Office of the Texas Governor's Sexual Assault Survivors Task Force. I'm a member of these so that I can bring my experience as a survivor and as an advocate in this movement to give a voice to those who cannot be there. Lastly, I'm here to tell you that I want everyone to support survivors by believing them, not judging them, not blaming them, and supporting them by asking them what they need, and by working tirelessly until all their needs are met. That is a part of why we are here today. We want survivors' voices at the center of important conversations that will impact how they are seen and how they are treated. I am here because I am a survivor and my voice matters. For those of you who don't speak Spanish, you're going to wish you had paid attention in class. Same remarks in Spanish. Buenos días, soy Leticia Manzano, soy sobreviviente de violencia sexual. La primera vez que fui abusada tenía 5 años y fui abusada por un familiar adulto masculino. Las próximas 2 veces que fui abusada tenía 12 y 13 años y fui abusada por otro familiar adulto masculino. Y desafortunadamente no fue la última vez que fui agredida sexualmente. También sufrí violencia sexual por un joven con el cual salía cuando yo estaba en la universidad. Estoy aquí para hablar de mi experiencia y decirles que mi historia es común. Por los últimos 25 años he sido consejera en Houston Area Women's Center y durante mi carrera he trabajado con muchísimas sobrevivientes que también han sido agredidas sexualmente más de una vez en sus vidas y casi siempre por un familiar o conocido. Como otras sobrevivientes, inmediatamente pensé cómo reaccionaría mi mamá u otros miembros de mi familia al escuchar que estaba hablando públicamente de haber sido abusada sexualmente por hombres en mi familia. Como otras mujeres, inmediatamente pensé en las necesidades y sentimientos de otros antes de pensar en mis necesidades y mis sentimientos. Como otras sobrevivientes de asalto sexual, al pensar que iba a hablar esta mañana, me trajo muchos recuerdos dolorosos e indeseables. Y como otras sobrevivientes, también me dio ansiedad al saber que las preguntas que me esperaban eran, ¿y por qué no dijiste nada? ¿Por qué no denunciaste a la policía? Pero sabía que tenía que hablar hoy por otras que no pueden hablar. Estoy aquí para decirles que estas preguntas son las incorrectas. Prefiero que me pregunten cuáles son unas razones por las cuales los niños no les dicen a sus papás que han sido abusados sexualmente. ¿Cuáles son unas razones por las cuales algunas personas no denuncian a la policía. Y prefiero que estas preguntas las hagan con la meta de querer entender a todas y todos los sobrevivientes y por querer saber cómo apoyarlos. En vez de hacer preguntas, diles a los sobrevivientes que no decirle a sus padres y no denunciar el crimen es común y se entienden los motivos por no haberlo hecho. Tengo que hablar por otros que no pueden hablar. En mi calidad como gerente de servicios de asalto sexual en Houston Area Women's Center, he tenido la oportunidad de hablar en espacios importantes por otras y otros que no pueden. Y es un honor y un privilegio. Actualmente soy miembro del equipo de respuesta a la agresión sexual del condado de Harris y también soy miembro del grupo de trabajo de sobrevivientes de agresión sexual de la oficina del gobernador de Texas. Hago esto para traer mi experiencia como sobreviviente y como consejera y asesora en este movimiento, y estoy ahí porque otras no pueden estar. Por último, estoy aquí para decirles que quiero que apoyen a los sobrevivientes creyéndoles, no culpándolas, preguntándoles qué necesitan y asegurándose que todas sus necesidades sean atendidas. Esa es parte de la razón que nosotras estamos aquí hoy. Queremos que las voces de las sobrevivientes estén en el centro de conversaciones importantes que impactarán la forma en que son vistas y tratadas. Estoy aquí porque soy una sobreviviente y mi voz importa. Gracias.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Hill, and I'm the Assistant Executive Director here at the Children's Assessment Center. Here at the CAC, we provide free services to child sexual abuse victims and to child sex trafficking victims and their non-offending caregivers. We provide forensic interviews, we do medical examinations, and therapy and psychological services here on site for almost 7,000 children and families a year. And that's a lot. 7,000 is a lot for just 1 year. And those are just the reports that we know about that come here. We know there is so much more child sexual abuse out there that has gone unreported. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys, so 1 in 10, will be sexually abused before their 18th birthday. We are so grateful to law enforcement for recognizing this issue of their backlog, and we're so grateful of their commitment to address it because we believe that sexual assault victims deserve that they deserve for those cases to be investigated. And we're glad that law enforcement is taking a harder look at those cases. And we have faith that they will continue to make adult sexual assault cases and child sexual assault cases a priority.
Good morning. Ooh. Did I move that wrong? Can you guys hear me? En el 2020, la vida me dio una lección muy valiosa. El mundo se había detenido. Las cosas que me habían mantenido ocupada se habían vuelto inaccesibles. Por muchos años me había hecho todo lo posible por negar y afrontar el abuso sexual del que había sido víctima. Mi abuso sexual ocurrió en el vínculo familiar. Y desgraciadamente, para mí aceptar Mi abuso involucraba aceptar que personas que se supone que deberían de ser responsables por mi seguridad me habían lastimado. También significaba reconocer que las personas a las que yo me acerqué a pedir apoyo decidieron silenciar mi voz, decidieron hacerme creer que causaría problemas familiares, que nadie me iba a creer. Antes no lo sabía, pero la violencia sexual se puede presentar de diferentes formas. Independientemente del acto de en sí violentar a una persona, existe la revictimización. La revictimización funciona a través de culpar a la víctima de su propio abuso. Es el desvalidar la experiencia, cuestionar a la víctima en vez de cuestionar al agresor. Existen ideologías basadas en el machismo, en la falta de educación y en la falta de empatía que hacen que víctimas como yo decidamos guardar silencio. Y puede que hasta nos creamos que fue nuestra culpa. Hoy yo entiendo que a la edad a la que yo sufrí mi abuso, mi cerebro ni siquiera estaba totalmente desarrollado para poder entender con exactitud lo delicado y grave que era el problema que yo tenía. Mucho menos estaba capacitada para poderme dirigir a las autoridades pertinentes y denunciar a mi violador. Considero que es de suma importancia iniciar conversaciones de este tipo para quitarle el estigma y empoderar a las víctimas de este tipo de crímenes a alzar su voz y así poder comenzar a romper con el trauma generacional. Cuando finalmente yo logré encontrar las fuerzas para poder hablar del tema, me encontré con oficiales que me desanimaban. Me hicieron preguntas, me tomaron los datos, la fecha en la que ocurrió y me preguntaron si tenía alguna evidencia. La evidencia, en mi caso, fue obtenida por mí misma. Debo resaltar que la evidencia que existió en mi caso fue proveída por mí misma. Se la entregué al detective aquí en Houston, pasaron los meses, después se me asignó un abogado, después otro, y así hasta que pasaron 7 abogados diferentes que tomaron mi caso. Pero ninguna evidencia nueva fue añadida al caso. Ninguna evidencia fue añadida por el sistema judicial o el abogado que cerró el caso me expuso que él había llegado a un acuerdo con la defensa de mi acusador. Acuerdo que sinceramente ni siquiera era el castigo respectivo para el tipo de crimen que mi abusador había cometido. Pero el abogado me aseguraba que era lo mejor que podía obtener en casos como los míos. Sin sangre, sin videos de violencia. Él decía que este tipo de casos no llegan a las cortes. Algún tiempo después, recibí una llamada del mismo abogado para informarme que ya había tomado la decisión y que ya había aceptado el acuerdo de la defensa. Se me permitió dar mi discurso de impacto. En el discurso de impacto, yo me enfoqué en redactar de la mejor manera posible cómo es que me sentí durante todos los años que guardé silencio, durante el proceso de meter cargos. Y para eso yo consideré que hubo varias cosas que pudieron haberse hecho diferentes y que quizás eso hubiera hecho que mi abusador pagara por su delito, pero lo más importante para mí era prevenir que este hombre pudiera lastimar a alguien más. Al redactar mi discurso, expliqué que no estaba de acuerdo en la decisión, pero que el abogado me había explicado que él trabajaba para el Estado, no trabajaba para mí. Su trabajo consistía en asegurarse que los fondos del Estado fueran utilizados de la mejor manera posible, y que sería inhumano llevar a mi violador a corte, con la poquita evidencia que existía, que no era suficiente. Obviamente, al leer que yo redacté todo esto, me llamó a su oficina antes de poder expresarme y con una pluma me señaló que había porciones que yo no podía decir, que mi discurso debía enfocarse en su totalidad en mi abusador, que yo no estaba ahí para echarlo a él de cabeza. En la oficina también estaban presentes 2 mujeres que trabajaban para el Estado, eran victim advocates. Ninguna de ellas, la verdad, en ningún momento detuvo al abogado para defenderme. Tuve yo sola que decirle al abogado que nunca había firmado ningún acuerdo de privacidad y que estaba en todo mi derecho de haberme expresado libremente. Y terminé diciendo mi discurso de la manera como lo había escrito originalmente. Lo que me gustaría que las personas que están escuchando mi historia entiendan es que no importa cuántas veces les digan que no es suficiente, que no vale la pena, que es mejor guardárselo. Piensen realmente a quién beneficia nuestro silencio. Que historias, desgraciadamente, existen muchísimas, pero que si trabajamos colectivamente, yo pienso que sí podemos cambiar las cosas. Quiero que sepan que estadísticamente se conoce que cada 68 segundos alguien experimenta violencia sexual. Cada 9 minutos la víctima es un niño. Y solamente 25 de 1000 violadores llegan a tocar la cárcel. La violencia sexual puede ocurrir en cualquier círculo socioeconómico, no discrimina edades, orientaciones sexuales. So I'm going to say not the same thing in English, a little bit different. Está todo revuelto. Yeah, but it's mixed up. Was it? Yeah, it's this one. All right. I'm a survivor, which means that I survived sexual violence. During my lifetime, I experienced rape, child molestation. These experiences make me feel unprotected, unworthy of justice. As a child experiencing sexual assault, it was out of my understanding to comprehend the significance of my experience. I just knew that I didn't want it to be left alone with my abuser. And if the trauma itself was not enough, I faced blame victim, shaming, but the most impactful of all of it was the lack of protection our system provides to survivors. When I walk into a police office station, as the officer took my report, I remember being received with a look of disbelief. Because I had taken 10 years to talk about my experience. I remember being discouraged about the outcome of my case due to the time frame and the evidence that I provided. I mentioned earlier that I had encountered different experiences, not that I filed every time. But you might ask yourself, Why not report every time? And I can tell you from a victim perspective that the reasons go from not having enough evidence, from the fear of not being believed, the lack of support system. A child like me who could not have the appropriate language of or understanding of their experience. It could also be that it's easier to deny our experiences and avoid. Believing that suppressing our memories will make somehow the pain to go away. Let's remember that sexual violence is an umbrella term, that it involves many different crimes: sexual assault, rape, sexual abuse. Sexual violence can happen to anyone, making this extremely important to address, because sexual violence is a complex and delicate situation. There needs to be accordingly trained people to address this matter at police stations. There needs to be awareness that children who have not fully developed cannot consent. Victims could potentially experience abuse and not know how to express it, or don't have anyone that makes them feel safe enough to disclose this information. And in the case that the survivor finally finds the strength to go to a police station and faces police officers who discourage the victim from prosecuting the crime, because is this really the best that we can do? In my case, I had close to 7 lawyers. None of them actually perform a thorough investigation. The last lawyer even told me that it would have been inhumane and unethical to bring my abuser to court because the evidence was just not enough, which was literally a self-confession audio. It was literally my abuser admitting that he did it. It was, and that it was his duty to protect the funds the state had for cases of more severity. When I decided to write my victim statement about the impact of the filing charges against my abuser, and I dare to mention all of this that I'm saying to you guys right now, my lawyer printed itself the statement and scratched off what he thought it was inappropriate to say. He said, "You're not here to throw me under the bus." But it all had an impact of how I perceived the system treated victims of sexual assault. And yes, I mentioned my original statement on court in a settlement that I never agreed on. And that honestly is a slap on the wrist of my abuser. But today, I am here to share all of this with you, because even if the system failed me, even if I did not receive the justice, I already won. I already got my voice back, and I don't longer let anyone dictate my worth. I no longer hold what ifs. And I am here to tell all the victims out there who might feel alone and scared to talk about your experience that there is a place where you can call, and there will be somebody at the end of the line ready to listen. That was hard for me. Statistics call that somebody gets assaulted every 68 seconds. Every 9 minutes, that victim is a child. And only 25 out of 1,000 perpetrators ever face jail time. Unfortunately, our system is not doing enough. The authorities are not trained to attend the needs the victims have. The understanding of the nature of these crimes is poor, and it's leading to shaming, blaming, making assumptions based on ignorance. I hope this message is helpful and makes victims feel less alone in this journey, and it inspires people to make changes because it's really needed. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Emily. I am here today in support of fellow survivors and to speak about my personal experience with Houston law enforcement. I was fortunate that my report was assigned to a detective. In my case, as I presented evidence throughout the investigation, I was met with silence, casual indifference, annoyed behavior, and on one occasion, actual disgust. The detective assigned to my case ignored all of the 5 emails I sent to her over the course of 3 months. These were just questions, documentation, and evidence. I also recall being told that she would present my case to the DA soon, but that she had a planned vacation coming up, so she would do it after that. Despite video recording, him bragging about what he did, bloody clothes, clothes with DNA, text messages, and thorough documentation, she told me that based on all this, the DA declined to press charges because it would be too difficult to prosecute. Further, when she called to tell me this devastating news, she was extremely flippant to the point of what it sounded like laughter. And it was again made clear to me that it was only my word against his, and I was considered the liar. I was blamed. I don't know how many times I called the police for help when he would harass me at my home, but it was his routine to ensure I had to face him daily. Out of dozens of calls, there was only one officer who showed any real concern, to whom I'm grateful for even today. He was one of only 3 officers that responded to pleas for help. All other calls were completely ignored. I feel there's a clear message to Houstonians that sexual assault victims don't matter. To quote Chief Finner, "These crimes are some of the most traumatic for victims and their families." I can attest to the truth of that. Without the people at Texas Forensic Nurse Examiners, and especially without the people at Houston Area Women's Center, I'm not sure I'd be here today. My case is only unique in that there was a pretense of an investigation thanks to a friend I had that could help get my case assigned to a detective. I want to speak to survivors. I recognize how scary and hopeless it can feel to share your story and seek the justice you deserve. Your experiences matter, your life matters, and no matter what anyone makes you feel, you matter. I promise you are stronger than you may feel. Please don't let the failures of law enforcement deter you from seeking justice for what happened to you. There is a community waiting to embrace you.
Good morning. My name is Sonia Corrales, and I'm the Deputy CEO at the Houston Area Women's Center. And I want to start just by acknowledging all of these survivors back here, but I really want to thank Sylvia, Ana, Emily, and Leticia for your courage, for using your voice to speak out and advocate for change in the silence that surrounds sexual assault. By lending your voice today, you help end the false sense of shame that survivors often carry. Your voice lets survivors know that they are not alone, that help is available, and they can heal. Thank you for facilitating that today. I also want to acknowledge that it is okay that not all survivors make the decision to speak out publicly. And we want them to know that they too are courageous. Their emotional and physical safety are the most important. You heard a lot about what sexual assault is, and I want to frame it a little bit differently. Sexual violence is a choice where the person who assaults decides to assert their interest over another person's right to safety and security of their own body. Illegally exerts power and control over another person and violates an individual's sense of self with life-changing consequences. Those are things that we heard today. Sexual assault, as you heard today as well, takes many forms. You heard sexual harassment, unwanted touching, sex trafficking is another form, sexual abuse, teen abuse, intimate partner sexual assault, and any other sexual contact that is unconsensual or not consensual. An essential element to understanding sexual assault is recognizing that it's an act of violence, that it is not an act of sex. And that's a misconception that we must dispel. Now, you've been invited today to listen to survivors share their unique experiences about sexual violence. And we want you to know how privileged you are to be here. You are getting a peek at what the Houston Area Women's Center does every single day. For every survivor, adult and child, who comes for us for help, we provide a safe and supportive environment where they can share their stories of survival, their fears, and their frustrations. HAWK has been supporting and advocating on behalf of survivors for more than 46 years. We offer a 24-hour hotline, chat, hospital accompaniment, law enforcement accompaniment, counseling, housing, and legal advocacy. Sexual assault or sexual violence has both immediate and long-term consequences, including depression, anxiety, and feelings of self-blame. Every person has their own unique way of responding to this crime. Our job at the Houston Area Women's Center is to help survivors understand changes in their behavior and then supporting them in their healing journey. It is also our job to work with our community partners as they learn to understand survivor behavior as well and their perceptions. So when a survivor goes and seeks help, that they understand that the reaction that they're seeing is trauma and not question their credibility. In closing, we want you to know that we stand with survivors of sexual assault. Survivors decide to speak out because they are tired of the social stigma and shame, and they want to be part of the change that they desire. When we allow secrecy, silence, and misconceptions to exist, we allow sexual assault and its wounds to thrive. The courage of survivors to use their voice has created changes in laws. It's brought about improvements in our response to sexual assault and dispelled misconceptions. And we want to continue that. Thank you again to Sylvia, to Ana, to Emily, and Leticia for your courage and your strength. To save time, I'm not going to make my remarks in Spanish, but I'll be available for interviews.
Thank you. We are going to end today with a call to action. You've heard the stories. You've listened to the truths of the survivors. I am asking that you center their stories, have patience to tell them, have patience to listen, and be partners. It is going to take every one of us to avail ourselves of the solutions that are at hand. We do not need to abide sexual assault in our community. We do not need to tolerate it, and with you together we will put an end to sexual assault. Thank you very much for being here.